Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on a webinar Wednesday, and a super loud shout out to Vanessa Chase Lockshin for joining us for this webinar. Vanessa, thank you for saying yes.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm really glad to be here with you all.
So in this webinar, we are talking about leveling up your event marketing with email featuring Vanessa. She is the Storytelling Nonprofit, and Vanessa is a consultant specializing in nonprofit storytelling, fundraising, and communications. She's the author of Nonprofit, a practical guide for telling stories that raise money and awareness, creative of the immersive online training programs for nonprofit professionals. Her approach goes beyond strategies and tactics, and you'll see in this webinar, she brought the goods today. You are going to walk away with nuggets. You are going to walk away with ideas, stuff that you can implement immediately. So again, Vanessa, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm really happy to be here with you all today.
So just some housekeeping. Yes, you will get the webinar slides. Yes, you will get the replay. Up at the top, you'll see a chat and a Q&A. You can go ahead and put something in the chat. I'd love to know geographically what kind of area you are tuning in from and what kind of organization you are fundraising for. And then if you have any Q&As throughout, you can drop that into the Q&A or just throw it into the regular chat, either one. But up at the top, you should see a little area where it says chat, and I will say hello in there. Oh, it's at the bottom. Thank you, Lena. Sorry, I'm seeing it at the top, but then you're right. The blank is at the bottom. 1,000,000% correct. So I would love to hear where you guys are joining us from. And then we will go ahead and take a dive into the slides. And the title of this is Level Up Your Event Marketing. And so many times, Vanessa, people ask us on support or in welcome calls or in demos, okay, we're doing this big event. How do we get people to show up? How do we fill the seats? How do we tell them about everything? And we can tell them a little bit from the tech side, and we'll talk about transactional versus marketing emails. But obviously, this is where you shine and can answer those questions. So I can just sit back with my pen and paper, grab some notes, and then when people ask me, I have some even better answers than my canned response of, do your best kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's all we can do, right?
Right. It looks like we're going East Coast to West Coast. We've got Washington, New York. We've got Beaverton, Oregon in there, Hamilton. We've got Milan Foundation, Quilt Guild. It looks like a variety of organizations as well. So should we go ahead and kick this off for real now?
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. All right. Well, welcome to everybody. I'm really excited to be here with you all today to talk about emails and events. Just a little bit more about my background and why I'm here talking to you about this today. I primarily work in email fundraising, and what I do with, I would say, like small to mid-sized nonprofits is help them run effective email fundraising programs. And as a part of that, especially in the last, I would say, 5 years since COVID, a lot of our work has also involved helping organizations promote their events, sell raffle tickets, promote 50/50s, all the things that they're doing kind of in lieu of in-person events, especially in 2020 through 2022. But a lot of that has continued. Many of them have resumed their in-person galas and need to get people in seats. And so as somebody who works in email with them and knows a lot about their lists and knows a lot about best practices, I often get asked to help them market those things and continue to get those out into the community. So I'm really excited today to just talk to you a little bit more about the power of email and where and what you can do with your email to help promote the events that you've got coming up. Lori, did you want to say anything on this?
Sure. If you guys came in through the Vanessa road and you're like, who is talking? What's Octria? Since 2011, Octria has raised over $1 billion. Actually, we didn't. The heroes out there have done it, all you change makers. And I'm proud to have Vanessa on our webinar stage today. And I do have some information about Octria later on. This is what we had for a overview agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. So just we're going to cover a couple different things here today. I'll talk about how email can complement some of the other marketing tactics you might be using and just talk about it more holistically as a channel. We'll talk about three types of emails that you can send to help you sell more tickets and raise more money through your events. And I'll also just talk about more specifically tips to improve click-through rates on email, since that is like one of the main analytics we look at in email that can help us get more people over to whatever page we want them to be at to take an action. All right, so let's dive in. So I'll start by talking about just a little bit the power of email. I am certainly biased in my belief in it as a channel, but I do think that it's a really powerful tool for organizations. But the thing that I find often sees kind of like gets in their way or stops them short from using email in a really effective manner is a lot of organizations still think about email as like the e-newsletter or like the digital newsletter that they have going out to their email list or constituents, community members, donors, all of that. So if you think about it that way, which is okay, I just want to invite you to think about email as another tool in your toolkit that can be used for a wide variety of things. It doesn't just have to be that type of content, that type of template. You can do a lot of different things with it, and you can start to get a little bit more sophisticated in the types of emails you send, the content that you're serving to people, and also how you're targeting people within your email list as well. So I will just ask all of you, I'd love to know in the chat, like, how do you currently market your events, auctions, 50/50s, whatever you've got coming up? What's usually in your plan, if you have a plan?
That's a great question, and I'd love to answer that too as people put it in chat. Obviously, with an Octria, they can do so much, and sometimes when I rattle everything off to people, they're like, "Oh my gosh, how do we do all that?" And the answer is, you don't have to do all of them. Do the ones that are working for your audience. So I'm looking forward to seeing what answers come up in the chat here. It looks like there's a couple notes in here. We rely a lot on individual outreach from major gift officers, mail invitations, including all publications, social media, emails, text, social media flyers, emails, MailChimp, social media, personal connections, local print ads, on-site print newsletters, article and local, Facebook, Instagram, e-blasts, Facebook, newsletters, emails. I mean, covering the gamut, right?
Yeah, you all are doing the things, which is great. So I'm really happy to hear that. And I would say, especially, I'm just going to go up to that top comment again from Jillian, just about relying on major gift officers for individual outreach. I think that's really true, especially if you're doing gala type events and you're really trying to fill those seats with major donors. With one of my clients, have really seen them, in some ways, like I think part of what happened for a while was they were really promoting a gala very broad based to a lot of people, but they weren't really the type of people who were going to come to a $5,000 a plate dinner and then still donate $25,000 or $50,000 after that. And so some of the things that you can think about when you're marketing your events is, if there's a certain type of profile of a donor that you want there, is it a message that needs to get sent to everybody on your email list? Maybe not. Maybe that's okay. And if not, can you focus on cultivating, asking that other group who maybe isn't the right candidate for the type of event or thing that you have going on? Can you give them something else to do? Chances are you probably can. There's probably other things associated with your events or your galas that you can give people to take part in. All right. So let's talk about multi-channel. It sounds like a lot of you are already doing this. If you're not familiar with the idea of multi-channel marketing, it's essentially this concept of being kind of omnipresent in a lot of different places. I think about it kind of as the surround sound marketing experience, where you are making sure that your message gets out to people in a lot of different places, and you're not just overly reliant on one channel to get in front of people. So ideally, we're using at least two ways of getting in front of people. So that might be email and personal outreach. It might be direct mail, email, phone calls, social media. It could also be paid tools like advertising, social advertising, print advertising, radio ads, things like that. But the idea is that when people see this more often and in more places, they are more likely to, one, see it because there's lots of information coming at us and sometimes we don't see everything, and they're more likely to take action. And I would say, adding into that too, the more frequently people encounter that message, the more likely they are to take action. I think the last time I looked this stat up, it was something like, I think it was from like the Advertising Association of America, that it was people had to see an advertising message a minimum of 7 times for it to become memorable to them, for something that they would remember and potentially take action on. And so I think about that a lot with the amount of contact that we sometimes have to have with people. And in that, if we have to contact people a number of times to get them to buy an event ticket, to buy their raffle ticket, to place a bid in auctions, we need to not say the same thing every single time to them, right? We have to kind of vary up our messaging, we have to vary up our marketing a little bit so that people aren't just getting that same like flyer style email from us saying like, here's the information, join us this day, like all of that, which we might put out like in kind of an initial announcement email about an event. But we need to give them something different. We need to give them different angles, different reasons to take action. And that's where these different types of emails kind of come into play. I'll just speak a little bit to email. As I said earlier, I'm definitely an enthusiast of email. I always tell people I think it is by far the best digital direct response channel that we have in our toolkits as fundraisers and marketers. Because, when you think about social media these days, it is either pay to play or we're very much at the mercy of algorithms that aren't always kind to us. They aren't always serving our content to the audiences that we built. Whereas with email, fortunately still, we have a high chance of still getting in somebody's inbox. It's in chronological order. If they know us, if they like our emails, they're probably inclined to open it and check it out. But also in addition to that, some of the things I think about are that, people check their inboxes many times a day. I don't know about all of you, but sometimes, I probably check my email 4 or 5 times a day at least, depending on what I'm doing. And, sometimes that's my work email. Sometimes I'm looking at my personal email a few times a day as well. So we have a lot of opportunity to get in front of people because they're in there engaging with their emails so much. I also thought that it was really interesting too, just thinking about events that are really sold online, which a lot of them are. In a study from Eventbrite, they said that 78% of their event creators said that email was their most effective marketing tactic, and that about 45% of their event ticket sales came from email. So I don't know if any of you are doing a lot of tracking of your analytics. You certainly could using things like UTM codes to track where sales come from. But you can start to see, what is really effective and working in your marketing. And that can help you also improve your strategy down the road if you are hosting a similar event or hosting an auction again at some point. But I would say bottom line, I always tell people email is the best way to get directly in front of your online audience. And it can I think continues to pay really high dividends for a lot of organizations, certainly the ones that I've worked with. And sometimes email gets a bit of a bad rap. People are like, well, people are very over email. We get a lot of it. Nobody's looking at email. I would say we all said the same thing about direct mail 10 years ago, and we're all still sending mail and it's all still working. So don't be too cynical about it. And the more emails that you send in some ways, the higher your chances are of engaging more of your list and getting them to participate in whatever your ask is for them.
Awesome.
So I would also just add to that too, my other argument for email in a lot of ways is that it's a really cost-effective digital tool in your marketing toolbox. It really doesn't cost you a lot to send an extra email as a part of a marketing campaign or 3 extra emails. You may have to do some additional writing for that email, but compared to having to do advertising, compared to having to like print something and the costs associated with printing and mailing, email at scale can allow you to have a greater reach and a higher return on investment at a pretty like low barrier to entry, I think, which is something to consider because not all of us have enormous budgets to continue to market these events over and over and over again in lots of places. All right, so let's talk about types of emails to send. So I know there's lots of emails that you can send as a part of your marketing campaign for events, raffles, and things like that. I thought today I would just talk about 3 particular emails that I tend to send during these types of campaigns, and I'll give you some examples and show you what those look like, and we'll kind of walk through those together. Happy to pause and answer questions as I go. So the 3 emails I look at are deadline-driven emails, so getting people to take action based on a deadline. I know from fundraising, and I'm sure all of you know this as well, that is one of the most effective tools we have to get people to finally make a decision and get off the fence and do the thing we want them to do. Social proof, which is an extremely powerful way to market events and fundraising initiatives. I think it's really underutilized in a lot of ways. It is kind of this concept of getting other people to be the ambassadors, the talking heads of whatever it is you're doing, and allowing your organization to use their clout, their perspective to get other people to take action as well. In fundraising, I often see this kind of show up as like organizations telling donor stories so that other donors can see people like them are donating and hopefully will like jump on the bandwagon and be excited about supporting the organization. And we can do something similar with events as well. And then the last one is story-based emails. And you might think, well, like it's an event or an auction. Like, how can we tell a story about that? I think you have lots of stories you can use to motivate people to click that button to buy a ticket or to go bid on a raffle or an auction. And a lot of it comes down to helping people connect back to the impact of this initiative that you're working on. So often I see in event emails, they're very much about like the details and the logistics of the event. Like it's happening this day, here's this speaker, here's what the agenda is like, or here's what we're going to do with this thing. It's very much focused on, I would say, like kind of in marketing terms, like the features of what's going on and not so much like the benefits of what's going to happen as a result of this event. And so sometimes we need to just like flip that around a little bit. So rather than reminding people once again that we're like having this gala at this like really fantastic location, what's going to happen as a result of this event, like with the money that you've raised, what is going to be the outcome of that? How are you going to be able to change people's lives, support your community, all of those great things? Like that is ultimately what the event is about. And I think sometimes like going back and reminding people of that again in the marketing can just get them that much more connected and engaged to the mission, because like that's why they want to be there, right? They want to support you because they care about your mission and care about what your organization is doing. All right, so let's talk about some examples here. So the first one, I'll just show you here, is an example of an incentive plus a deadline to get people to purchase an event ticket. So one of my clients for a number of years was BC Women's Health Foundation here in British Columbia. And every year they hosted kind of a lunchtime gala situation to support women's health research in the spring. And this wasn't necessarily like their marquee fundraising event. They did a big like evening gala in the fall. So this one was a little less well attended. And so last year, we wanted to think about how could we make this more of a popular event with donors? What could we do to entice them to buy their tickets and show up to this one? So one of the things we decided to do was kind of early on in the ticket sale process, I think this was about a month into opening ticket sales, was we wanted to give people an incentive to kind of buy at a certain point. So we told them that if you buy in the next week, you would be entered to win a year-long membership at this spa that was just outside of town. And so it did a couple of really great things. Like one, it gave people an extra incentive. Like there's this potential bonus of like, oh, if I buy my ticket, I might get this thing as well. And it gave people a deadline. Like we didn't give them a month to buy their ticket. We gave them a week. So we said, if you buy in the next 7 days, we'll enter your name into this raffle that we're going to do, this prize drawing. So you may or may not be able to do something like this, but I'm going to give you a couple ideas of how you could do this. If you have event sponsors, auction sponsors, other people you're working with, you may be able to get an extra incentive item to do something like this during your marketing promo period, where you can kind of set up sort of a mini campaign within your total event marketing campaign. The other thing you can do is also just think about, are there other ways that you can kind of create this like exclusive experience for people if they buy tickets at certain points? So other things I've seen, is, if somebody buys a ticket within like a certain time frame, they have a chance to like win a seat at the head table with like the guest speaker and the executive director. And so sometimes that's like kind of an incentive for people. They'll be excited to be there with like the keynote speaker. And that doesn't really cost your organization a lot, like the 2 seats at the table potentially for that person and their guest. But that can be another way to just like give people incentive to make their decision and buy their tickets sooner. I'll show you another one here on the next slide. This is from a 50-50 that I worked on. Variety was a client of mine for a long time. So I think this one was probably like 3 or 4 years old now. They were running a 50-50 all summer long. We started in July. It ended over like Labor Day weekend, I think. And this was like part of the final emails we sent on that Sunday of Labor Day weekend to get people to buy their tickets at the very last minute. And we did a couple things here to try to incentivize people. One, there was like the obvious hard deadline of like midnight is the very last chance you have to buy tickets for this 50-50. But also we tried to bring in this sense of urgency and like heightened incentive because the jackpot was pretty high. It was higher than they had anticipated it being. And so they said that they were setting a stretch goal. They were hoping in the next, like, I think we sent this email out about like 8 hours before the deadline. They were hoping to raise another $10,000 for the 50/50 jackpot to hit 125,000. And so again, like getting people excited, like I think a lot of times with 50/50s, some of you, if you've run them before, you know that last like day that it's open, you'll see a lot of activity on your page, a lot of people buying their tickets. You can use email to continue to drive more traffic to that page, reminding people of what the jackpot is, getting them excited that it's like higher than you thought it would be, or that you're really close to your goal, are all things that you can do to get people more engaged in that ticket buying process. The other thing we did was that I think as people bought tickets over the summer, we were suppressing them from emails for a while. So if we knew they were a ticket purchaser, we just didn't send them more emails asking them to buy tickets because we didn't want to get them unsubscribed from the list. So we waited until the very last day that the raffle or the 50/50 was still open. And we sent those people a follow-up email to say, like, we really appreciate you buying your ticket earlier this summer. And we wanted to let you know the jackpot is now like X amount. And if you want to buy additional tickets, you still can. So we were able to get additional ticket sales from people who'd already bought who wanted tickets further down in the raffle numbers. So think about like other little ways too that you can kind of continue to engage people over the course of the campaign. There's lots of things like that that you can do to get people to make repeat purchases, or in the case of auctions, like repeat bids.
That makes sense. This comes up frequently. People are like, oh my gosh, we hit our goal. How can we still ask people for money? And
Oh,
you've
yeah.
squared it up right here for that.
Yeah, yes. I think the two ways that I always think about it are, either you're in a position to like, you're going to reach the goal, or hopefully like that's what you're still trying to do. And so your messaging is something along the lines of like, we've got 12 hours and like, we're close to our goal, help us reach our goal kind of messaging. Or on the converse side, and I do this in fundraising campaigns, which is where I kind of got this tactic from, we've exceeded the goal. Like, how exciting is that? Like, now we're going to set this stretch goal for our community to try to reach that so we can help more kids. We can help do whatever it is that we're trying to do in the community. People get really excited. I always tell people that, like, it sounds very like kind of contrite in some ways, but people like to support winners, right? Like they're very excited when an organization is doing well, when like they have met a fundraising goal, they're like just really doing great things in the community. And so in some ways, if you can kind of tap into that desire with people and say like, we've reached the goal, we've set a stretch goal, and like we want to do even more of this, people are really excited to support that kind of work. Yeah, so don't be afraid to send out more emails or say that you have a stretch goal in there as well. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about social proof. I, for the life of me, could not find the email version of this, so my apologies. But I'm going to describe it to you and tell you about it. So one of the things that I did with BC Women's when we were kind of going into their fall evening gala that they do, was I wanted them to use more social proof. They didn't do a whole lot of kind of like storytelling and social proof in their ticket sales process. And so what we did was we kind of cut a series of videos. They were between like 30 and 90 seconds, I think, of high profile attendees, influencers who attended the event, and also kind of like key hospital figures or speakers at the event who all would talk about why they were looking forward to this year's gala, why they were excited to support the Fund a Need that year, and inviting people to buy their tickets. So I think in total, we had 5 of these videos that we used over the marketing period for the event. This was one of them. This is the Instagram post version of it. And this features a very well-loved doctor from the hospital who's delivered like some absurd amount of babies, like 2,000 babies or something like that. So lots of people know him. He's a recognizable name. And it was a great way, like we had a really high click-through rate on this email because people were like, oh, I know Dr. Rosengarten, like he delivered my niece's baby or my baby or whatever. They wanted to see what he had to say. The thing that worked really well about this email though, was that when we sent people to go watch the video from the email, we just put that video right at the top of the ticket page where we were selling tickets so that people were already in the place that they needed to be to buy tickets. Like we didn't send them here to this Instagram post and then like hope and pray that they were going to make it to the right place to buy the ticket. So if you are thinking about kind of like multimedia content or you use video, which I highly recommend, it's a great tactic to add into it. See if you can put it on your ticket page or somewhere where it's really easy for people to get to that next step of buying the ticket. You'll see a much higher conversion rate on that. And Lori, I don't know, do you have that capability?
If you're using Octria,
Yeah.
the website gives you the ability to put up photos and videos, and to have that continuity right there is stellar.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing. I mean, in fundraising, like on the fundraising side of things, I always think about the ease of user experience. Like we want to make it as easy as possible for people to donate. So I'm, not going to give people a donation form that has like 50 fields for them to fill out. Like, it's name, email address, and like their credit card information, like a kind of minimum situation. And similarly, like I'm not going to send them to the homepage of my website when I say in an email, like make your donation today. Like I'm going to send them directly to that donation page so that we can maximize the conversion rate. And, we can do the same thing too if we're kind of taking a mixed media content approach with marketing events or other things, making sure that people are in the right place to see that content and then purchase their ticket right away. All right, let's talk a little bit about impact stories and story-based emails. So I have a couple that I'll show you. This is an example from Variety BC. This is just the bottom part of the email, where we really brought in an example of a story from one of the children that they helped over the last year. And again, people were of course like motivated by the 50-50 jackpot. Like people were excited about the promise of like maybe winning half of that. Sure, that's definitely what's going to motivate some people. But ultimately, all of these people that we were marketing to were donors to the organization. And so, their motivations were philanthropic for many other transactions they had with the nonprofit. They were excited to support them, to give money to help the kids. All of that was really exciting to them. And so one of the things we wanted to do in the emails was just remind people of that and remind them that like when you make when you make a purchase of a 50-50 ticket, this is the kind of work that you help us fund. And so it doesn't have to be a complicated story. This one is a little on the longer side, but it can just be a couple of sentences where you say like, this is what our work is about, because of support we get through initiatives like our 50-50 or our silent auction, whatever it is you might be doing, we're able to do XYZ thing. And just again, I think what I often tell people from like a writing perspective is that with email, with marketing, like we want people to come to the same conclusions we're already making. We never want to rely on them to like connect the dots and understand that like buying a ticket means this thing. We just want to spell it out really clearly for them. So in your writing and in your emails, like don't be afraid to be obvious. It's better to be obvious than to try to be literary or creative or assume that people are going to get what we're trying to get in those emails. The more we can just be direct, the better. And again, with impact stories, like a couple of things to think about with them, whether you want to write like a longer form one or a shorter form one, you want to be clear about like who it is that's being helped, like who is the kind of the character, so to speak, of your story. What was the problem that they had? So, what challenge did that, in this case, this child and their family face? And what was the outcome of that problem? How was the organization and support from donors able to help them? So if we can hit those three things, usually we're able to tell a pretty good impact story about what's going on with the organization. And I'll just show you one other example here. And this is just another one from Variety. So again, you can see this is kind of a shorter form one. And what I did in this email instead was we wanted to just like make it a really short form email. So very like action oriented, getting the information like above the scroll line or above the fold, if you will, like if you think about a direct mail piece. So we wrote a pretty short like story synopsis for one of the kids that they've been able to help. We gave people essential information of like what is the jackpot at, and also gave them the clear call to action to buy their tickets. So feel free to use this as a template if you're working on 50-50s or thinking about how to do that for your organization. I'll just pause real quick before I talk about that next slide, Lori. I just wanted to see if anybody had questions about any of the types of emails that I've talked about. I'm happy to kind of answer any questions about those before we talk about a few other things.
I will say the one question that comes up that we hear all the time is, and you kind of mentioned it, but I wonder if you can dial in a little more on how many times can we really send an email? How many times can we post on social media? And I try to tell people how fast that river is running on
Mhm.
social media, and the
Yeah.
fact that it's okay to post multiple times. You're obviously the expert. Can you expand upon that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good question. So for reference, let me give you an example. In a fundraising campaign I ran with Variety, it was a week-long campaign we did for 7 days. We sent a total of, I think it was 12 emails over those 7 days. Not everybody got every email, but I would say most people got about 8 emails, maybe 9 emails in that week. Our unsubscribe rates were not any higher than we normally saw. They were below 0.5%, which is what I usually look at as like a good marker of unsubscribe rates. We're going to get them, but if they're higher than 0.5, usually that means we're seeing an anomaly in the email. The thing to know about the email and like your email program is that you are hyper aware of it and what you're doing far more than your donors are or like anybody on your email list. And so I always tell people, like, just think about your own inbox. Like, what did you get in the last couple of days? Like, I'm in my inbox all the time. Like, I could not tell you what marketing emails I got, what specifically they were about, how often people emailed me. I can think of one instance in the last 5 years where I was like, huh, I got a lot of emails from this organization. It was a nonprofit during end of year fundraising. And I actually went back and like counted how many emails I got from them. It took something like 22 emails in a month before I was like, they emailed me a lot. So I'm not saying that's like the bar, but I'm saying that like the bar for like what will get people's attention in that negative way is so much higher than people typically account for it being. So don't be afraid to send emails. But if you are feeling a little nervous about sending more, the other thing that you can do is retarget people more strategically. So one of the things I do sometimes is I just send to non-openers. We'll send like a follow-up email to people who haven't actually opened the first email. And that's a way for us to like get it back up in their inbox again, hopefully get them to open it, get them to click it. You could also just follow up with people who have like consistently clicked on like the last 2 to 3 emails, but maybe haven't actually taken the action yet. So maybe they haven't bought their ticket, purchased a ticket, whatever it might be. And so you might know like what that can indicate to you is that those are highly engaged people with the campaign. Like there's clearly something about it that is intriguing to them, but they just haven't pulled the trigger on whatever it is you're asking them to do. And so those are probably your people who are most likely to do whatever it is you want them to do. And so by just focusing and doubling down on them, you can kind of like leave the other portion of your email list alone, for a few days, and then maybe come back and bring them into the mix again. So thinking about the segmentation of it too can also, I find, like help people feel a little bit more at ease at sending more emails.
Wonderful. I jotted that down. Week-long email, it was 12 emails, and that was over 7 days. So when people ask me in our demos and other stuff, Vanessa said.
I'm happy to tell you. I would say too, like, on an average month for a lot of the clients that I work with, we're sending an email a week, usually like in a non-campaign time. But, that's because I want people to stay engaged on the email list. Like we have to send emails for people to be used to opening it, clicking on it, recognizing our sender names, all of those things. Like that's really good for the health of your email list. And hopefully all of that means that when it comes to kind of like more of a peak moment for the organization and marketing or fundraising where we're running a campaign, we can send more emails because we're not like doing that constantly to the point where we're annoying subscribers. But if you pick your moments, you can definitely do that with, I would say, like a lot lower ramifications for sending more emails. So.
Shall we move on?
All right, yeah, let's talk about this real quick. I just wanted to give you a couple ideas for how to improve clicks in your emails. So this is, I would say, one of the most important things to look at. A lot of you might think like, oh, well, what about open rates? Open rates are notoriously unreliable right now. And that's because we have services like Apple Privacy Opens that are just reporting emails as getting opened even when they're not. So there's a lot about open rates right now that, I don't know, I take them with a bit of a grain of salt personally. But the thing that we know that is still reliably reported to us is the click-through rate. And ultimately, that's a really good indicator to me as a marketer and a fundraiser of how engaged people were with the content and the messaging and how well it resonated with them and how much we can drive traffic over to whatever page we want them to be on. So a couple things that I do. I hyperlink entire sentences in email, not just like 2 or 3 words. In fundraising emails, I often see people highlight or hyperlink the words donate now. But if you think about your mobile device, like those two words are really tiny on a phone screen. They can be really hard to find. So from a user experience perspective, the more we can do to make things easy and obvious to click on, the better. So that's why I will highlight entire sentence, sometimes two sentences if there's a point I'm really trying to make in a call to action. It stands out, it's easy for people to find, and I always have higher click-through rates on those emails. I also tell people to make sure you have a link above like the scroll line, so like or the fold in direct mail. So usually that's at about, like depending on how big your header image is, that's usually around like 125 to 150 words into your email. Like you're going to give people some information, some context, and then ask them to do something. So, don't write an essay or a dissertation and then like put the call to action way down at the bottom. We want to make sure we get that somewhere up top, and then maybe we can give people additional information. This might seem like a simple thing. Hyperlink your banner graphic, even if it's just your nonprofit's logo up top. Like lots of people will click on that. So send them to the right place if they're going to click on that. And I have also seen higher conversion, like higher click-through rates lately on banner graphics where we put like what looks like a button in there. Usually it's just like a graphic button. So it's not like that specific thing that you can click. The whole image is clickable. But again, like that kind of signal to people that there's something here to click on has worked really well for us in emails as of late. You can also try adding a button or a graphic call to action at the bottom of your emails in the footer. Again, like I think about my phone, like what I do on my phone, I have to just like scroll to the bottom of an email too quickly, right? Because we just like kind of swipe up on it. So again, like if you have that information there, that's where people might engage with it again. And lastly, I would just say like make sure your call to action is clear and urgent. So, again, like when I said like not hyperlinking just the words donate now is the action we want people to take. But in the call to action that we make, we can also remind people of the impact again. So I could say donate now, or I could say make your donation today to help children with complex healthcare needs have what they need to thrive. And that's probably going to be more compelling to people on some level because I'm reminding them about what they're going to do, what their donation is going to do. And you can bring that same kind of concept over to your raffle ticket sales, your event ticket sales, all of those things, just weaving in that idea of impact at every moment you can so that people feel really connected to what that is for your organization. And hopefully they can feel really good about what they're going to do.
Is it okay to have a different call to action, two different calls of action in the same email, one going to raffle tickets and another one going to make a monthly donation? I'm making both of those up, but is it okay to have that?
I think so. I mean, ultimately, I always tell people like test these things and see how it does, right? And also just think about like your priority, like which one is the one that you most want people to do. So sometimes when I've done 50/50s or things like that, or like auctions, I think is the other big one too. We'll put like make a one-time gift link in there as well, or a button. So it'll be like, donate, like bid on an auction item or make a donation. And we will have people who, want to support the organization, but like bidding on an auction item isn't really something that they want to do. So they'll click on that link. And I'm always glad that we give them an easy way to engage with that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just turn this back over to all of you tuning in. I always ask people just to tell us like what is one tip from today's webinar that you plan on implementing. So if you want to share that in the chat, or if you're taking notes, I'd encourage you to just like put a big star by it and think about what that one thing is that you're going to do for your next event. And I'd say if you're looking for some additional resources around email fundraising or working on your email program, I have a couple of free templates you can download. I have an email campaign planner, which is just basically a really great document that I use with clients for mapping out campaigns. You could easily apply those to event marketing campaigns as well. And I also have a spreadsheet that we use for all of our clients to track their emails and manage like the calendar of content for emails. So if you need some tools to help you get organized with your marketing campaigns and your email campaigns, these are some great tools that you can just download for free over at storytellingnonprofit.com/toolkit. So I'll say thank you to all of you. Go send some amazing emails. And if you have questions after this webinar, I'm always happy to get emails from people. Like if you want to reach out to me, my email is vanessa@thestorytellingnonprofit.com. Feel free to send me your questions. I'd be happy to connect with you.
Awesome. And I'm going to bring this around to Octria and our emails. Within the system, within the Octria platform, you have your system emails, which are your transactional, your purchases, your e-tickets, your outbid notifications, requesting a guest of, and you can always brand all of the emails. So you can do exactly what Vanessa is saying. Put an image at the top, link it to your organization back if they want to know more about your organization. And within the Octria platform for your Emerald and your Diamonds, we also have your custom emails. And the best practice for using for your registered participants. I would use just the registered participants for your custom emails. I wouldn't just send it out just willy-nilly to everybody that attended your last 10 events. Be specific when you're doing that. And then you have your custom email manager that can go out to anybody that's registered. Use it strategically. You go under your communications and your custom emails. You'll be able to find that. Typically, your emails that go out for your ticket communications look like this. If you want to modify that, you can go ahead and stylize them differently. I know a lot of times people are looking for who are their guests. A lot of times sponsors will buy a table and then, 3 months later, they will, who are we going to invite? Who's going to put at that table? So we have some specialized emails so that you can grab the guest ofs, and that's within the system also. And then from our milestones webinar that we did, we talked about custom communications for emails. 2 weeks out, pre-register your credit card, closer to it, what to expect, what to know when you get there. So all these things are going to be valuable to shorten your check-in lines, because that's the goal, right? To make your check-in lines as quick as possible. You can include bidder numbers and table numbers and linked bidders all in your emails. There's so much value in using the system for that event stuff, but then you can do your bidder statements, you can bulk send those afterwards. But going back to what Vanessa is talking about for your storytelling, for the engagement, for getting through the information in general to your organizations, you definitely want to use your system email, whether it's Constant Contact, or I think some people put in there MailChimp. Any of that stuff belongs in that mail system. So the transactional ones, leave them in Octria, but brand those. Take advantage of the ability to modify those in the system, and then use all the tips that Vanessa gave you leading up to and then throughout the year. It looked like there were a couple questions that I think popped in, or at least some comments that they took away as nuggets. I always ask them, are you taking it to your boardroom table or to your kitchen table tonight? So it looks like a link above the scroll, hyperlinking sentences. Be sure to include the story, link to joining online auction, what kind of email format would work for online. Did you want to touch base on that one for Warren?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say using a couple different types for online auctions. You definitely want to send some emails with probably images of some of the items that you have, which will help people just visualize them. And again, like, you want to be clear about deadlines. I would really lean into, with auctions, like the deadline approaching emails. So sending one the day before and probably two the day of, to, again, just remind people to make their bids on your auction items.
Awesome. Yeah, we find but when you were talking about adding video, if people take a video of themselves scrolling through the auction, what are they going to bid on? Are they going to have fun when they come to that, and include that in the email? I see that getting a lot of traction too. I see one of our auctioneers, he says auctioneer, he does everything, event planner. He does a lot of his Facebook lives, and he live streams what's going to happen at the auction. And I think that gets some traction also. Then you have that video that you can go ahead and repurpose over and over and over again in the emails for people that have missed it, etc. A note here.
I just wanted to respond to something Jennifer said. I
go right ahead.
To respond to her in the collaborate on that for folks. So your question was about giving input on graphic invitations for emails versus having text-based emails. So there's a couple of things I would say about that. One, not all email clients or inbox service providers will auto download images. So if you have sent an email that is entirely an image, there's a chance people may not even see that. And it's just going to be a really wonky looking email when it arrives in inboxes. So never just solely rely on images to do the heavy lifting in your emails. Two, there's always the need to think about just accessibility. And yes, you can add alt text to your images in emails, which I would encourage all of us to be doing since it's 2025. People have screen readers and sometimes need that extra layer of accessibility for emails. But again, like, there's just a lot of barriers sometimes with, like, I would say highly designed highly designed graphic emails to consider. Throughout my career, I have been, I don't know, I always want to say like something of like a graphic minimalist in emails. And so I'm inclined to tell you that like I've raised millions of dollars through emails in the last 10 years. Plain text emails do well. I've tested head-to-head graphic emails against text-based emails. The text-based ones almost always do better. But I would say like test this in your own shop and see what people are responding to on your email list, because your email list may not be exactly like the ones that I work on.
Awesome. Under the Q&A section, it looks like there was a message that came in that I missed, and I apologize. It says, we are very new, less than a year old nonprofit, and I'm very new to fundraising. Embarrassingly, I don't know what social proof is from a marketing standpoint. Could you clarify, please? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. And I hope I maybe answered this too while I was talking about it. But social proof is basically just using proof from other people who are doing the thing that you want them to do. So in fundraising, social proof is a donor saying, this is why I donated to this organization. Or for events, social proof is somebody saying, I had a great time last year at the event, and like, here's why I'm looking forward to coming in. You can also think about them as like testimonials as well for your marketing.
Awesome. Thank you. Patrick has a question here regarding texting for marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let me just see if I can find that question.
It's in the alt chat at about.
Oh, using text. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, to be honest, I don't do a lot of SMS text marketing myself, so I have very little thoughts, like as a professional, on like how effective it is. I know clients of mine have text programs and do use it to send reminders, to get people to increase auction bids, things like that. I think it's good, again, like as a part of a multi-channel approach. It's never a bad thing to be reminding people of what we need them to do. But unfortunately, I can't really speak to like definitively how effective it is. Lori, I wonder if you can at all from your perspective.
That's what we're here for, authenticity and being honest, right? I would say if the group currently chats with their constituency on text or texting, and you're falling in line with that, then I would say they're probably more apt to read it, respond to it, and take action on it. But file that under the tested and let us know for part B of this webinar.
Yes.
There's another question comes in. I'm curious if the group has any thoughts on incentives or deadlines for early registration to free events.
Great question. I don't do a whole lot of, well, that's not true. I have one client who does a lot of free events, like webinar type events that they do. But we haven't tested anything with incentives for deadlines for that, but I would imagine that could work really well. I think if I were doing it, depending on the nature of your free event and what you're trying to get out of it, I might place the incentive more for people who show up, or maybe have like a live show up incentive, because ideally you want people to actually attend the event, right? Not just register for it and then reap the benefit of maybe like getting in a raffle prize list. So I would maybe say like, register, we have this like great prize that we're giving away live during the event. Yeah, as you probably saw from earlier emails that I showed, like I'm definitely not opposed to incentives as another way to kind of drive action. I know from years of marketing that that's definitely something that works for people. If they feel like they're getting something else, or there's the promise of getting something else, it's a really good driver of them taking action.
For sure. And I can see why you would you're up against the clock on a free event. How many people are going to show up? How are we going to prepare for it? How are we going to have enough volunteers or enough staff or enough whatever to accomplish the goal? So, and somebody put in there, I don't know if that was you, Vanessa, maybe you can create a VIP or behind the scenes experience. And then somebody wrote, we don't do SMS marketing yet, but we are hoping to do so this fall. Since people are wary of clicking on links in text, we're thinking of doing it as a reminder, like the event is only XX days away. Check your email for details on how to purchase your ticket.
Yeah, I want to say, just regarding that, like, wary of clicking links in text, right? I think all of us are up against like bad actors in texting and email, right? Like there's lots of people out there who are just spam actors, or organizations or businesses who don't really respect a lot of the best practices of this type of direct response marketing. And so one of the things I always say to people is just think about what you can do to build a good sender reputation. Like the best thing that's going to help you over time get better results from your email program, your SMS program, whatever program it is you're doing in digital, is being known as somebody who sends good, reputable messages with content people actually want to receive. And that's maybe a little bit more about like what you send in between these types of marketing campaigns for events and everything. But the more that you can kind of lean into that idea of like, how do we be a good sender? How do we build a good sender reputation? How do we send emails that people actually want to receive and enjoy hearing? I think that you'll find you get a lot of traction in really building that kind of engaged email audience. And also you'll have more people who are more likely to click on things because they trust you as a sender.
Awesome. Thank you. And I did have one last slide. For Octria, we have some conferences that are coming up. We will be in Seattle, April 27th to the 29th for AFP Icon in Seattle. We're actually going to be up there a couple days early and then going down to Portland afterwards. So if you are at the conference, come say hi. Love to chat with you. I have a special gift for you if you're an Octria organization. And then we have the Inspired Fundraising Retreat we're doing in August. That is going to be online. So we're looking forward to that too. And we'll be sending out emails for that as they get closer. I think we even sent out a AFP one, will probably be next week. So, and then stay in touch. You're active on social media and LinkedIn, correct, Vanessa?
Yes. Yeah, I would say the best place to find me online is probably LinkedIn if you're looking for a social channel.
Awesome. And then we've got a lot of places. We've got our email, hello@octria.com. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. On Pinterest, we have over 500 pins that go directly to donation request pages. Our YouTube channel has our playbacks for our webinars. But one of my favorite places to hang out is our Facebook group, Auction Team Talk. I'm going to grab that real fast. It is literally the nicest page on Facebook. I know you guys hear me say that all the time. But people that are, why can't I find that? People that are working on their event and auction fundraisers, whether it be with Octria or just any sort of general event fundraiser, can chat there. A lot of times they ask questions, they get answers from their peers, professional auctioneers, professional event planners, and it is a very, very friendly and welcoming place. Did we catch everything, Vanessa? I'm just doing a quick scroll and it looks like we did. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Sure, I didn't miss anything.
Yeah. Well, it was great to be here with all of you. I really appreciated the questions and seeing your thoughts in the chat. And I hope you all took some good tips away from today's webinar. And as I said earlier, if you have any questions or you want to reach out just to chat about email, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to hear from you.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to join us, the audience, as well as Vanessa, of course. I appreciate you for taking the time to pull all this together and to spend it with our group. So I wish everybody bids that soar. I hope they crush your fundraising goals. Vanessa, I'll give you the very, very, very last word.
Likewise, go send amazing emails and do great work.